So let's talk a little bit about the current climate in professional combat sports. Dana White says that fighting isn't a career, it's an opportunity. And there's a lot of backlash from fighters saying that, yeah, this is, in this short window, is how I'm going to make my money for me and my family to live for the rest of my life. Okay. So the first thing is that, yes, any career that you have that's got a very short earning window for your peak, as far as your actual performance. So, not saying that if you leave the UFC and become a commentator, that can't be an extension of your career. That absolutely is. And if you're not fighting, but you're coaching, you're training, or you're, pimping somebody's merchandise, that's also an extension of your career. But when you just talk about the very short window that you have to actually get in the ring and hook a jab, it's a very short career. So, yes, I think they should get a little bit more of the money. And yes, I do understand that there are very hard economic decisions to be made. So, per fight, you got to pay a lot of shit. You got to pay the building that you're in. You got to pay the employees. You got to pay the promotion, all the fucking people that do all the fucking things. You got to do that. These are all true. But they're also not just making money off of the fight. They're making money off of licensing. You want to play a UFC video game? They're making money off of that. They're making money off of the appearances that the guys do. Right? So, now there's another battle. Well, if I'm signing a 1099 and I'm a contractor, then I should just be making the money off my appearances because that's my company. That's my brand. But if I'm an employee, which they're kind of not, they don't do straight up employee. The reason why they don't do it is because that way they don't have to get such a hit if these guys don't want to fight, or get such a hit if these guys get in trouble. Jon Bones Jones, how is he able to get in so much trouble and keep fighting? Because he's not a direct employee. He's a subcontractor, 1099. That's how they do it. That's how they do it. And of course they do it that way. Of course. If I was running the UFC, I don't want to fucking go down every time one of these dickheads gets into a fucking bar fight. Fuck no. Anytime one of these guys gets into a domestic violence situation, his brand should hurt, not my brand. I believe in that. Right? But also, whenever you're such an economic partner, they should do it kind of more like the NBA does it. Where the NBA says, these are our business partners. What's good for them is good for us. And that's the way the UFC is kind of leaning towards, but they're not there yet. This Reebok thing was kind of atrocious. You cannot cut off a stream of revenue for somebody, especially when they're a subcontractor, just because you want a bit more of the action. Okay, cool. You could put that on top of them. Yeah, you could do it. Yeah, we got a Reebok deal. You got to somehow endorse Reebok, but you can also endorse whatever else you're doing, right? But then what happens when the companies go at war? What if you're a Nike guy and then they say we got to do Reebok? What happens then? It's sticky, right? But you're still a subcontractor. So yes, it's an opportunity. But it is how you're making your money from your career. And unless you want to take care of these guys completely, where you make them 100% employees, where you got to pay for everything, medical, dental, vision, 401k, everything. Then, if you don't do that because you don't want their stupidity to hurt your brand, or whatever the actual massive amount of reasons are, then you got to live with the fact that they got to go elsewhere to maximize their earning potential. It's just a fact of life, man. If you don't want them to compete elsewhere in the market space for money, then you got to give them a bigger share of what you're doing. So I'm from Oklahoma, and the term, I'm all right. So I'm a white guy, and I can't use the term, but I'm from the field. I've always been from the field. I grew up the meme Sweet Brown. Ain't nobody got time for that. I grew up in those apartment complexes. That's Meridian Ridge apartment complex on 50th and Meridian. I grew up there until I was like 11 years old when my mama done came up. My mom went to school, and then we started making a lot of money living good. And I don't apologize for that. We got out. Thank you, mama. We got out, but that's where I'm from. And so in my career as a telecom guy, as a Marine, as all these other careers that I've had, handyman, roughnecking, all that stuff that I've done, I've always been a guy in the field. I haven't been a guy in the office. I haven't been the guy that has been in the kind of management position where you call in and you direct people. But I don't know. What do? I don't know. They just go to meetings all day. They're always on conference calls. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy actually out there making the money. Making the money. So, the guys going, doing the work, making the money, those are the guys I sympathize and empathize with. The guys fighting the fights. That's who I sympathize with. Because you can go get different management. But it's hard to go get different talent. And unless all of the stands, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Dagestan, even Chechnya, you can throw them in there. Unless all the mountain people, unless all the Caucasus Mountains and all of the fucking Zagros and all the mountains north of Iran, whatever I forget all their names. Unless they get together and start underbidding the world's fighting talent, because they can. There's all kinds of fighting talent there. Or maybe China or Russia. But China is more and more getting exposed for having fake martial arts. Not fake martial arts, but martial arts that are not conducive to hand-to-hand combat as effectively as other schools of martial arts. So it's not fake martial arts. It's a real martial arts. You go there, you will get a spiritual connection. But they haven't been battle ready and battle tested for a few hundred years. So the Shaolins whip your ass, right? But the Tai Chi guys that say that Tai Chi is a form of martial arts without actually hitting somebody, I mean, you're going to get schooled. And they do. They get schooled. But the point that I'm making is unless somebody undercuts the talent and just starts training, the talent is what you got. So Jorge Masvidal, he's already a superstar or a star or a big name, whatever. His brand is big. Conor McGregor, his brand's already big. You need those guys. And they're the ones out there doing the thing that you're selling. So yes, they need as big of a pie as you can give them. And I understand COVID-19 is a weird thing. It is. It's a weird thing. It's hurting everybody. No one likes it. But when you're the only game in town and your numbers are going up and your awareness and your audience is going up and you're recruiting audience from other sports, that's going up, then also the pay for the fighters got to go up. And you also got to allow them to maximize their earning potential with whatever business partners they find. Right? So the UFC already did great by holding on to their market share by aligning themselves with Disney and ESPN. Because Disney and ESPN ain't going to let nobody screw up their investment. This is for sure. We know this. Time has said this. They're too big. They got way too much money. They could be like the oil and gas people and say, we can lose $1 trillion this year just so our competitors can't fucking compete. We don't mind that. When you're so big that money doesn't matter, it's all amount of control. Because you could lose half your money, but if the other people lose half their money, your money's worth more because they ain't got it. That's Disney big. That's Disney big. And once you're Disney big, you can do what it takes to ensure that your product doesn't die. Which they could throw money at it for years just to ensure its survival. They could undercut somebody for years just to ensure its survival. Whatever it is, I'm not an economist. All I'm saying is that I know that those mechanisms exist in world economy because world economy is just war. That's all it is. It's we'll accept this for that under these terms and conditions. That's combat. That is just armistice agreements and all that shit. That's just war. Economic war. I understand war. I was taught war. I was taught war by the scariest people on the planet. Ever since I was 7 years old, I got taught war. And the first principle of war is being able to overwhelm your opponent by force. If you can't do that, then you take away their abilities to either defend or offend. You take their abilities of offense or defense. Here's economic warfare for you. Okay, I know that you need barrels to ship your product, but I don't want to compete with you. You have a far superior product and whatever. So I'm going to buy up all the barrels. Now I'm going to sell them to you at a huge markup. I own all the barrels. You can't get enough fast enough. There could be other barrel companies. You could start your own barrel company, but you're not going to be able to produce barrels fast enough to get your stuff to wherever it's got to go in order to make enough money to survive. Now I own all the barrels. I'll sell you the barrel company, but I'm going to buy your company first. And now that your name is synonymous with good and quality, I'll keep your name. Shoot, I'll make one or two of you very rich. You can even come on my staff. You know how to make good stuff. But your company does not get to exist independently as a competitor to mine. That's economic warfare. I understand war. I understand combat. And in war and economics, your ability to maximize your position is paramount. And these fighters need to be able to maximize their economic position. They have to. Because why else are you getting hit in the head? If these guys were any other kind of contractors, no one would tell them to take a shitty deal. If this was Jorge Masvidal's construction company and he was trying to get work from ESPN or Disney just as a construction company, no one would tell him, oh, well, you got to take the deal that you're given. They tell him, okay, work your contract, but if you can get work from anywhere else, if Bellator Construction wants to give you work, then you can get work there. Do you see what I'm saying? I know as I'm saying it, that example, that analogy, that metaphor doesn't quite work out great. But yes, I want them to fight. I want them to finish their deal. I want them to fulfill the agreement they made. Dana White is right. It's not an old deal. They're not getting screwed. John Jones is not getting screwed by the deal. But I also believe that if they want to find other corporate sponsors, they should be able to go do that. And that's just kind of how it is. So yeah, I want them to get a bigger piece of the pie. I do. They can have their original deal, but they also have kickers. For as much as the UFC grows, then they also get bonuses. A percentage of that. and it should be appropriate to their branding. You know? But also, if you're a little guy and you got a little brand, but you kick someone in the head and it's the most watched thing of MMA in 2 weeks, I think you should get a bonus for that. So it's profit sharing. What's good for you is good for me. And that way, then we can work out two things. All right, if I go on the Tonight Show and the UFC wants a little piece of it, that's cool. I'll give them a little piece of that, but they're giving me a little piece of all of their online revenue. And it should favor the fighter. You know, I give you a little piece of me going on the Tonight Show, but you're giving me a much bigger piece in relationship, directly proportional to the. So I pay you 14 grand for my Tonight Show, and you're giving me 100 grand for this. Absolutely. Because the higher you go in economics, all it is about business. Just the amount of transactions. How much money is going out and coming in. Spending is good whenever you're in a huge business. Just the amount of business you do. Spending's great. Because then you could make $1 billion and look like you're taking $1 trillion in loss. It's fantastic. No taxes. So this has just been a big thing for me to say that, I agree with the fighters. I also want them to shut up and get to fighting. But yeah, it is an opportunity. But yes, absolutely, it's a career. You can't just stop fighting and go wash dishes. It doesn't fucking work that way. You can't just stop fighting all of a sudden and, go write that novel you've been meaning to write. It doesn't work that way. Once you've spent 15 years doing something, you're kind of got to do it till it's over. You know, I'm a technician. It gets hard being a technician at 40. 40 years old, being a technician is hard. But I can't stop and just go to diesel mechanic school. It doesn't work that way. You need youth in order to change careers. Or you need someone to pay you favorably for your experience. So if you want to stop fighting and be like Brandon Schwab and go do a podcast and use your name to launch 2 or 3 different careers, you can do that. That's the exception, not the rule. If you're Jorge Masvidal and you're not giving up, and Shaq's not paying you $1 million per lesson, you need to get as much money as you can. Because one of these days, you're going to get into a fight and it's going to be too hard to get ready for the next one. Whether that's emotionally, whether that's spiritually, whether that's physically. And that's when you know you got to quit. That's when you know when you're done. You got to retire. That's when it takes way more to do just to prepare. When it takes more to prepare than it does to fight. And I'm not saying, it takes way more effort and way more shit to train than it does to actually go fight. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when your toughest day is every day. Again, that's not a great analogy, but when you know, you know. Whenever you've had to retire from something, give up something. I had to give up ice skating. You know, my body couldn't do that. It was sad. I love hockey. I love skating. But I love walking more. So that's the kind of decision that fighters have to make. That's when guys retire from the military. Getting up at 4 a.m. and running is hard. gets hard. You know, when it's I got to do everything I can just to go make this run, and then my family life suffers because I got to ice my leg for 2 days. Like, but then they give you a retirement, and then you can go get a job based on that experience. So it's a good deal. It's a good deal. Caesar did a lot for the world. One of the greatest things that he did was take care of his soldiers. Cared for them as if they were family. That's what the UFC's got to do. Care for their fighters as if that was your family. That's what I think of how the UFC is right now. All right?